Hello everyone, this is Heir's Trivia, and today we're continuing the founding of Jin Let's Talk Lore series with episode 2, titled The Path to Heir. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode, and be sure to stay tuned until the end of this episode for a brand new trivia question. Now last time, we ended with the abdication of Wei's last emperor, Cao Huan, and the crowning of Sima Yan as the first emperor of Jin, shortly after the death of his father, Sima Zhao, in 265. But as mentioned previously, despite being Sima Zhao's eldest son, for a long period of time, Sima Yan was not the presumptive heir for the Sima clan. The main reason for this is simply because Sima Yan's father, Sima Zhao, was not Sima Yi's eldest son, as he had one older brother from the same mother in Sima Shi. Add on the fact that Sima Shi had always been the more capable, bigger brother, the Sima clan was always supposed to pass on to Sima Shi and his branch of the family. Sima Shi, however, did struggle with having sons, as despite going through 3 wives in Xiahou Hui, Lady Wu, and Yang Huiyu, Sima Shi's only children were the 5 daughters he had with his first wife, Xiahou Hui. Facing a potential inheritance problem, Sima Yi made the ultimate decision to have his favorite grandson, Sima You, who was the second son of Sima Zhao, passed over and adopted by Sima Shi in order to continue Sima Shi's branch of the clan. Now, adoption of one's nephew for clan continuation was a common and accepted practice during the time. Yuan Shao, for example, was adopted by his uncle after his uncle's death, to help continue his uncle's line and to inherit the nobility title that his uncle had. Cao Cao's father, Cao Song, was also an adopted nephew, as Cao Cao's grandfather, Cao Teng, was unable to have his own kids due to the fact that he was a eunuch. So while the adoption of Sima You by Sima Shi should have settled the inheritance issue for the Sima clan for good, the situation got messy almost immediately, as Sima Yi basically pushed for this inheritance on his deathbed. Then shortly after Sima Yi's death, the second rebellion of Huainan would occur, forcing Sima Shi to war right after his surgery to remove a tumor under his eye. And this fresh wound would reopen during the rebellion when Wen Yang's night raid would occur, leading to Sima Shi's death in 255 at the age of just 48. Sima You, who had accompanied his new father on the campaign trail, would now suddenly become fatherless at the age of just barely 10 years old. Clearly, at this point, Sima You was just not old enough to lead the Sima clan, despite his early display of intelligence and high character traits and benevolence that had caught the eyes of his grandfather Sima Yi. So his biological father, Sima Zhao, naturally took up the mantle left behind by his older brother Sima Shi and became the leader for the Sima clan. This put Sima You in an extremely awkward situation, as on one hand, he was still the rightful heir to Sima Shi, as he would go on to inherit Sima Shi's nobility title of Wuyang Hou, or the Marquis of Wuyang. But at the same time, he was the second son of Sima Zhao. Sima You and his older brother Sima Yan even shared the same mother in Sima Zhao's main wife, Wang Yuanji. So there was no clash of any sort between the two brothers, now turned cousins, like in the case of Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu. And to further add confusion, Sima Zhao once made a comment on how he will eventually let Sima You become his heir in order to honor his brother's contribution in helping the Sima clan gain power. So for a long period of time, it was extremely unclear who would become Sima Zhao's heir. Now, despite all the signs of intelligence and strong moral characters at a young age, Sima You did have one major disadvantage when compared to his older brother Sima Yan, and that is, Sima Yan was exactly 10 years older than Sima You. And this massive age gap meant that at the time of Sima Shi's death in 255, Sima Yan had already come of age and spent the last 5 years of his young career working in the imperial court as a court assistant, carriage captain for the emperor, imperial palace guard captain, imperial attendant, before landing himself a lieutenant position in the Central Guard Army. and this was all before Sima You had turned even 10. While Sima Yan might not have earned these positions through merit alone, he definitely knew he had to earn his right to become Sima Zhao's heir. So aside from learning and accumulating experience, Sima Yan busied himself networking with key officials within his father's inner circle. In particular, officials Shan Tao, Jia Chong, He Zeng, and Pei Xiu all became staunch supporters of Sima Yan in the battle for heir, while Sima You basically had zero support from court due to his young age. And to highlight how much weight these officials had with Sima Zhao, we just have to look at their contributions to the Sima clan. Shan Tao was a renowned scholar and a member of a collection of Jin scholars nicknamed the Seven Sage of the Bamboo Grove. And while most members of this group disliked the Sima clan, Shan Tao was one of the few exceptions, as he was in a way related to the Sima clan. Shan Tao's clan was a minor gentry clan from the commandery of Henei, which is where the Sima clan hailed from. Shan Tao's grand aunt was the mother of Zhang Chunhua, or the grandmother of both Sima Shi and Sima Zhao. So in a sense, Shan Tao was a distant cousin to both Sima Shi and Sima Zhao. And this relationship created a lot of trust between them, which is why when Sima Zhao decided to march to Chang'an to answer the possibility of Zhonghui's rebellion, Shan Tao was the man he trusted to command his personal guards to surveillance the Cao imperial clan members within Ye. Jia Chong is not related to Sima Zhao, but Sima Zhao probably trusts Jia Chong more than any of his relatives, as Jia Chong is not only a close advisor, but also someone who dared to kill an emperor for him. Conversely, Jia Chong also knew that Sima Zhao would always have his back, as Sima Zhao could have easily thrown him under the bus after the death of Emperor Cao Mao to lessen his own involvement in the matter, but Sima Zhao chose not to. And speaking of the Sima clan's path to power, we cannot forget the turning point, which is Sima Yi's coup at Gaopingling, and He Zeng was one of the key officials in charge of the garrisons in the capital commandery that had supported and helped Sima Yi during that coup. And last but not least, we have Pei Xiu, who comes from the esteemed He Dongpei gentry clan, a personal rival to Zhonghui. Pei Xiu would solidify his position as a key member of the court after Zhonghui's failed rebellion, and as a part of 3 generations of the Pei clan that had held key posts in the imperial court, Pei Xiu was instrumental in lobbying for Sima Yan as heir. One time, Pei Xiu told Sima Zhao that given Sima Yan's unique features, it's hard to imagine him as a mere subject. Now, the features in question here are Sima Yan's unnaturally long and silky hair that could reach the floor, and his long arms that allowed his hands to reach past his knees. For those who might remember, Liu Bei also had the long arms that could reach past his knees, as this was often used to signify one's destiny to become an emperor. Aside from earning the favors of these key officials, Sima Yan also had a close personal friend in Yang Xiu, who was a member of the esteemed Taishan Yang gentry clan, who acted as a personal advisor for Sima Yan during the battle for heir. And other notable members of the Yang clan at the time were Sima Shi's last wife, Yang Huiyu, and future Jin general of the chariot, Yang Hu, who was Yang Xiu's cousin. In short, the biggest takeaway here is that Sima Yan was able to network his way to win the support of almost all the dominant gentry clans of the time. This made him the only choice for heir, as if the Sima clan wanted to usurp and force the Wei emperor to abdicate, the legitimacy of their new dynasty depends entirely on the support of these influential gentry clans that made up the ruling elites. So in a sense, while most members of the Sima clan saw Sima You as the more talented child with great potential, Sima Yan became the only correct choice to lead the clan to the imperial throne. And this is why when Sima Zhao finally took that final step to accept the Duke of Jin title in October of 264, signifying his readiness for the Sima clan to usurp one day, Sima Yan was also officially named as his heir to the duke title. Now, because Sima Yan was so much older than Sima You and that they shared the same mother, the two brothers did not have a terrible relationship after Sima Yan founded Jin and became an emperor. It was definitely much better than the relationship between Cao Pi and Cao Zhi, but at the same time, this large age gap became a negative for their relationship in Sima Yan's later years, as he worried about his own inheritance given that his eldest son, Sima Zhong, was mentally challenged. This gave rise to a growing faction in the imperial court that pushed for Sima You to be returned to the throne as Sima Yan's heir. And this would become the divide that would break the relationship between these brothers. And for those interested in what happened in the end with Sima You, I would highly recommend the 8 Princes Let's Talk Lore series, as this story goes far beyond the scope of our current series here. And with that, we're going to be ending our episode here and come back next time to look at some of the first policies enacted by Emperor Sima Yan, as the Jin dynasty will try to learn from the mistakes of both the Han and Wei dynasties before them, only to make a few of their own. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!